Clara Whitmore pressed her bleeding palm against her apron and kept stirring. The pot of stew bubbled. Her hand throbbed. But she didn't stop because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering that nobody in this world wanted her. That was the day Samuel Thornton walked into the boarding house kitchen and said 5 words that changed everything. "I need a fake wife." She should have said no. She should have run. Instead, she said yes and broke the one rule that could destroy them both. If you want to see how this story ends, subscribe to my channel and stay until the very last word. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. The kitchen door slammed open hard enough to rattle every pot hanging on the wall. Clara didn't look up. Didn't flinch. After 6 years working at Miller's boarding house, she'd learned that flinching only encouraged the worst kind of people. "You the cook." The voice was rough, male, impatient. "I'm the cook." Clara kept her eyes on the bread dough, punching it down with more force than necessary. "Supper's at 6. You'll have to wait like everyone else." Silence. She expected the door to slam shut, expected heavy boots retreating down the hallway. Instead, she heard those boots come closer, stopping just behind her. "I ain't here for supper." Clara's hands stilled in the dough. Something about that voice, the way it cracked around the edges like a man holding too much weight, made her finally turn around. The man standing in her kitchen was tall, broad-shouldered in a way that said he worked for a living, not one of those soft-handed businessmen who passed through Cedar Hollow on the railroad. His clothes were expensive, but worn good quality, hard-used. Snow dusted his dark hair and the shoulders of his coat, but it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Amber-colored and absolutely exhausted, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Maybe months. "What do you want then?" Clara asked. The man's jaw worked for a moment. He looked at her, really looked, taking in her flour-covered apron, her work-roughened hands, her hair escaping its pins in the steam from the stove. "I need a wife," he said. Clara blinked. "Excuse me." "A fake wife, for 3 months. Maybe 4. He said it like he was ordering supplies. "I'll pay you $500. $500. Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. $500 was more money than she'd see in 3 years of cooking. $500 was a bakery of her own. $500 was freedom. "You're drunk," she said flatly. "I ain't drunk." "Then you're crazy." "Probably." He didn't smile. "But I'm also desperate, and Mrs. Miller says you're the most sensible woman in this town." Clara laughed a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Mrs. Miller said that. She said you work harder than any 3 women combined. Said you never cause trouble. Never complain." He paused. "Said you ain't got family to ask questions." The last part landed like a slap. Clara turned back to her bread dough, punching it so hard her knuckles ached. "Get out of my kitchen. Just hear me out. I said get out. My daughter needs you." Clara's hand stopped. "Daughter." Slowly she turned back around. The man's face had changed. The exhaustion was still there, but underneath it, desperation. The raw, bleeding kind that couldn't be faked. "You have a daughter," Clara said. "Lily. She's 6 years old." His voice roughened. "Her mama left 2 years ago. Run off with some merchant from Denver. Left Lily behind like she was nothing." Clara felt something twist in her chest. She knew what it was like to be left behind, to be nothing. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "But I don't see what that has to do with. My mama wants to take her." "Take her? Back to Boston." The words came out bitter as ash. "Says a child needs a mother. Says I can't raise her proper without a wife. Says if I don't find a suitable woman by spring, she'll petition the courts for guardianship." Clara stared at him. "Can she do that?" "She's Ruth Thornton." He said the name like it explained everything. And in Montana territory, maybe it did. Clara had heard of the Thorntons. Everyone had. Biggest ranch in 300 miles. More money than God and twice the influence. "You're Samuel Thornton," she said slowly. "Sam." He grimaced like his own name tasted sour. "And I need someone to make my mother believe I'm married. Just long enough to get her to drop this guardianship nonsense. Just long enough to keep my daughter." Clara shook her head. "Find someone else." "I've tried. Try harder. Every eligible woman in this territory either wants my money or wants my name." Sam's voice dropped low, almost pleading. "They look at Lily like she's an obstacle, like she's something to be tolerated until they can give me real children." Clara flinched. She knew that look too, had seen it in the eyes of every family that almost adopted her from the orphanage, only to change their minds when a younger, prettier child came along. "I need someone who won't hurt her," Sam continued. "Someone who understands what it means to be unwanted." The word hung between them, sharp as broken glass. "Mrs. Miller told you about the orphanage," Clara said flatly. "She told me you aged out at 16. Told me you've been working here ever since. Told me you never once asked anyone for help, even when you should have." Sam took a step closer. "She told me you're the strongest woman she knows, and the loneliest." Clara's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to let him see. $500, she said carefully. "For 3 months of pretending." "That's right." "What exactly would I have to do?" "Live at the ranch, take meals with the family. Let my mother see that Lily has a woman's presence in her life." Sam's jaw tightened. "In public, we'd be affectionate. In private, you'd have your own room, your own space. I wouldn't ask anything improper of you." Clara studied his face. He meant it. She could see that much. "What happens after 3 months?" "We separate quietly. Tell everyone we couldn't make it work. You keep the money. I keep my daughter." He paused. "Clean break. No complications." No complications. The words should have been reassuring. Instead, they made Clara's stomach twist in a way she didn't understand. "There's one condition," Sam added. "What?" He looked at her, looked through her almost, and his voice went flat. "Neither of us falls in love. This is business. Nothing more. The minute feelings get involved, the whole thing falls apart." Clara almost laughed. "Mr. Thornton." Sam, I've spent my entire life making sure I don't feel anything for anyone. Love isn't something you need to worry about." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or recognition. "Then we understand each other," he said. Clara should have said no. Every instinct in her body screamed to say no. This man was a stranger. This plan was insane. This whole situation had disaster written all over it. But $500. A bakery of her own. A life where she didn't answer to anyone. "When do we start?" Clara asked. The wedding happened 3 days later. Not a real wedding. Sam was careful to explain that. Just a ceremony for show with a preacher who owed him a favor and a marriage certificate that would conveniently disappear after the arrangement ended. Clara wore her best dress. Her only good dress, really navy wool, with a high collar that hid the scar on her throat. Sam wore a dark suit that made his shoulders look even broader. They stood in the small church in Cedar Hollow, repeating vows neither of them meant, and when the preacher said, "You may kiss the bride," Sam leaned down and pressed his lips to Clara's forehead instead of her mouth. It was gentle, careful, the kind of kiss you'd give a sister, not a wife. Clara told herself she was grateful. "Congratulations, Mrs. Thornton," Sam said quietly as they walked out of the church. The name felt strange on her skin, wrong somehow, like wearing someone else's clothes. "What now?" she asked. "Now we go home. Now you meet Lily." Clara's heart stumbled. In all the rush of the past 3 days, the negotiations, the paperwork, the hasty arrangements, she'd almost forgotten about the child at the center of all this. A 6-year-old girl who'd been abandoned by her mother. a 6-year-old girl who was about to meet a stranger pretending to be family. "What have you told her about me?" Clara asked as Sam helped her into the wagon. "The truth mostly." Sam climbed up beside her and took the reins. "That I found someone to help take care of her, that you're kind, that she should give you a chance. And if she doesn't..." Sam's hands tightened on the reins. "She will. She's a good kid. Just scared." "Scared of what?" He was quiet for a long moment. The horses' hooves crunched through snow as they left town heading toward the mountains. "Scared of getting attached," Sam finally said. "Scared that everyone she loves will leave." Clara looked out at the endless white landscape, feeling something crack open in her chest. She knew that fear, lived with it every single day. Maybe that was why she'd said yes. Maybe underneath all the practical reasons and the money and the promise of freedom, she'd recognized something in Sam's voice when he talked about his daughter. The sound of someone who would do anything, anything to protect their child. Clara had never known that kind of love, had spent her whole life watching other people have it, want it, take it for granted. Now she was about to pretend to be part of it. She hoped she was strong enough. The ranch was bigger than Clara expected. A large wooden house with 2 stories and a wraparound porch surrounded by barns and outbuildings and fences that stretched toward the mountains. Smoke curled from the chimney. Lanterns glowed in the windows. It looked like a home. A real home. Clara's throat tightened. Sam helped her down from the wagon, his hands steady on her waist. "Ready?" "No." "Me neither." He almost smiled. "Let's go anyway." The front door opened before they reached the porch. A small figure burst out, blonde hair flying, bare feet somehow impervious to the snow. "Papa!" Sam caught the girl as she launched herself at him, lifting her easily. "Hey, little bit, you were supposed to stay inside where it's warm." "I was watching for you." The girl Lily wrapped her arms around his neck and peered over his shoulder at Clara. "Is that her?" "That's her." Sam turned so Lily could see Clara properly. "This is Clara. She's going to stay with us for a while." Lily's eyes were the same amber as her father's, and just as guarded. "Mama said she was staying too," the girl said quietly. Then she left. Clara felt the words like a knife between her ribs. Sam's face tightened with something that looked like barely contained fury. Not at Lily, Clara realized. At the woman who had done this to her. "I know, baby," Sam said softly. "I know people have left before, but it's okay if you're scared." The words came out before Clara could stop them. Lily's eyes snapped to her face. "I was left too," Clara continued. "When I was little, at an orphanage. I waited and waited for someone to come back for me, but nobody ever did." Lily's grip on her father's neck loosened slightly. "Nobody. Nobody." Clara took a step closer, crouching down so she was eye level with the girl. "I'm not going to tell you I'll never leave. I'm not going to make promises I might not keep. But I will tell you this, for as long as I'm here, I'm going to be honest with you. Always. Even when the truth is hard." Lily studied her face with an intensity that seemed far too old for 6 years. "Do you like chocolate cake?" the girl finally asked. Clara blinked at the sudden change of subject. "I love chocolate cake. Grandma Ruth says it's bad for digestion." Grandma Ruth sounds boring. For one terrible moment, Clara thought she'd made a horrible mistake. Then Lily laughed a real laugh, surprised and delighted, and Sam made a strangled sound that might have been laughter too. "I like her, Papa," Lily announced. "Can we keep her?" Sam's eyes met Clara's over his daughter's head. Something warm flickered in their amber depths. "We'll see, little bit," he said quietly. "We'll see." The first week was a careful dance of avoidance. Clara had her own room, as promised, a pretty space on the 2nd floor, with a view of the mountains, and a quilt on the bed that someone had clearly made by hand. She took her meals with Sam, and Lily helped with household tasks, played the part of dutiful wife whenever ranch hands were around to witness. But in the quiet moments, she and Sam circled each other like wary animals, never quite making eye contact, never quite touching. The only time things felt real was with Lily. The little girl followed Clara everywhere, watched her cook, watched her mend clothes, watched her read by the fire in the evenings, asked 1,000 questions about the orphanage, about cooking, about whether bears could swim about, whether stars were really the souls of dead people like Grandma Ruth said. Clara answered every question honestly, even the hard ones. "Why did your mama leave you at the orphanage?" Lily asked one afternoon, sitting on the kitchen counter while Clara kneaded bread. Clara's hands paused in the dough. "I don't know. I was just a baby. Maybe she was too young. Maybe she was too poor. Maybe—" She swallowed hard. "Maybe she just didn't want me." "That's stupid," Lily said fiercely. "You're nice. Anyone would want you." Clara's eyes burned. She blinked hard, concentrating on the bread. "Thank you, Lily. Papa wants you, I can tell." Clara's hands stopped completely. "What?" "He looks at you all the time when you're not looking." Lily shrugged matter of fact. "The way he used to look at Mama before she got mean." Clara's heart was pounding. "Lily, your father and it's complicated." Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain things. Clara laughed despite herself. "You're too smart for 6 years old." "I know." Lily grinned. "That's what Papa says too." Ruth Thornton arrived on a Monday. Clara heard the carriage first, the fancy kind with matched horses and a driver in livery. She was in the kitchen, naturally her hands covered in flour, when Sam appeared in the doorway. His face was pale. "She's early," he said. "By 2 weeks." Clara wiped her hands on her apron, heart hammering. "What do we do?" "Act married." Sam crossed the kitchen and took her hands, flour and all. "Clara, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" His hands were warm around hers, calloused, steady. Clara looked up into his amber eyes and saw something that looked almost like fear. "I trust you," she said. Sam squeezed her hands once, then released them. "Come on. Time to meet your mother-in-law." Ruth Thornton was exactly what Clara expected. Tall, silver-haired, dressed in black silk that probably cost more than Clara would earn in 5 years. Her eyes were sharp and cold as she swept into the house, taking in every detail with obvious disapproval. "Samuel!" She didn't embrace her son. Didn't even seem to consider it. "You look tired." "Good to see you too, Mama." "And this must be—" Ruth's gaze landed on Clara, sliding from her flour-dusted dress to her work-roughened hands to her simple hairstyle. "Your wife." The word dripped with skepticism. Clara straightened her spine. "Mrs. Thornton, it's a pleasure to meet you." "Is it?" Ruth circled Clara, slowly examining her like livestock at auction. "Samuel tells me you were an orphan, that you've worked in boarding houses, that you have no family, no connections, no background worth speaking of." "Mama," Sam started. "I'm speaking to your wife, Samuel." Ruth's voice was ice. "If she is indeed your wife." Clara met the older woman's eyes without flinching. "I am." "Prove it." "Excuse me." "Prove it." Ruth smiled, cold and triumphant. Any fortune hunter can pretend affection for a few hours. Any opportunist can play the blushing bride. But this is my grandson's future we're discussing. My family's legacy. So forgive me if I require more than your word. "What exactly do you want?" Sam demanded, stepping between his mother and Clara. "I want to observe." Ruth's smile widened. "I'll be staying through the winter. 3 months should be sufficient to determine whether this marriage is genuine, or a convenient arrangement to keep me from taking Lily to Boston where she belongs." Clara felt the floor drop out from under her. 3 months. Ruth Thornton would be watching them for 3 months. Sam's hand found hers, squeezing tight. His face was calm, but Clara could feel his pulse pounding against her palm. "You're welcome to stay as long as you like, Mama," he said evenly. But you'll find nothing to question. Clara is my wife in every way that matters." Ruth's eyes dropped to their joined hands. "We'll see, Samuel. We'll see." That night, after Ruth had retired to the guest room and Lily was asleep, Sam found Clara on the back porch. She was shivering, hugging herself against the cold, but she didn't go inside. Couldn't seem to move. "She knows," Clara whispered. "Your mother knows this isn't real." "She suspects." Sam moved to stand beside her close enough that his arm brushed hers. "That's not the same as knowing." 3 months, Sam. 3 months of her watching every move we make, every look, every touch. Clara shook her head. "We can't fake that. Not that well. Not for that long." "Then we don't fake it." Clara turned to look at him. In the moonlight, his face was all shadows and angles, his amber eyes dark and unreadable. "What does that mean?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "I mean, maybe we stop trying so hard to keep distance. Maybe we actually talk to each other. Get to know each other." He paused. "Maybe we become real partners. Just not romantic ones." Clara's heart was doing something strange and fluttery in her chest. "You want to be friends? I want my daughter safe." Sam turned to face her fully, his expression fierce. "I will do whatever it takes to keep her. Whatever it takes. If that means actually caring about you, actually building something real, then that's what I'll do." He said it like a declaration of war, like caring about her was a battle he was willing to fight. Clara should have been offended, should have felt used, manipulated, reduced to a means to an end. Instead, she felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, we'll do this together. For Lily." Sam nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then, before Clara could react, he reached out and took her hand. His fingers were warm despite the cold, calloused and strong and gentle all at once. "For Lily," he repeated. "And maybe—" He stopped, shook his head. "Never mind. Maybe what?" Sam looked at her, and for one breathless moment, Clara thought she saw something in his eyes that had nothing to do with their arrangement, nothing to do with his daughter, or his mother, or the elaborate lie they were living. Something that looked almost like— "Nothing," he said roughly. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." He released her hand and walked back inside, leaving Clara alone on the porch with her heart pounding and her hand still warm where he'd touched it. 3 months. 3 months of pretending to be his wife. 3 months of living in his house, eating at his table, helping raise his daughter. 3 months of trying not to fall in love with a man who had made her promise not to. Clara wrapped her arms around herself and stared out at the endless snow. She had a terrible feeling she was already failing. Ruth Thornton watched everything. Clara felt those cold eyes following her from the moment she woke until the moment she retreated to her room at night. Every gesture, every word, every interaction with Sam Ruth catalogued it all with the precision of a hawk tracking prey. The first test came at breakfast 3 days after Ruth's arrival. "You sleep in separate rooms," Ruth observed, stirring her tea with deliberate slowness. "How unusual for newlyweds." Clara's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Across the table, Sam's jaw tightened. "Clara's a light sleeper," he said evenly. "I come in late from checking the herds. Didn't want to disturb her." "How considerate." Ruth's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Though I must say, when your father and I were first married, we couldn't bear to be apart, not even for a single night." Lily looked up from her oatmeal, confusion flickering across her small face. "But Mama and Papa had different rooms too, before Mama left." The silence that followed was deafening. Ruth's teacup clinked against its saucer. "Did they, darling?" "Ruth." Sam's voice carried a warning. "That's enough." "I'm simply making conversation." Ruth patted Lily's hand. Your grandmother is just trying to understand your new family arrangement, sweetheart. After all, I want to make sure you're being properly cared for." Clara set down her fork. Her hands were steady, but her heart pounded against her ribs. "Lily is being properly cared for," Clara said quietly. "By her father. By me. By everyone in this household who loves her." Ruth's eyebrows rose. "Loves her? You've known the child for barely a week." "Some things don't need time." Clara met Ruth's gaze without flinching. "I know what it feels like to be a little girl waiting for someone to want her. I know what it costs to be left behind. And I know that Lily deserves better than being used as a weapon in whatever game you're playing." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Ruth's face went white, then red. Her fingers tightened around her teacup until her knuckles blanched. Sam was staring at Clara with something that looked almost like awe. But it was Lily who broke the silence, sliding off her chair and walking around the table to stand beside Clara. "I like when Clara takes care of me," the little girl said firmly. "She makes me chocolate cake even when you say it's bad for digestion." For one terrible moment, Clara thought Ruth might actually explode. Then, impossibly, the older woman laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no warmth. "Well," Ruth said, rising from the table, "it seems my granddaughter has made her preferences clear. For now." She swept out of the room, leaving devastation in her wake. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline catching up with her. "You shouldn't have done that," Sam said quietly. Clara's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry. She was using Lily to—" "I'm not angry." Sam was looking at her strangely, his amber eyes dark with something she couldn't name. "Nobody's ever stood up to my mother like that. Not for me, not for anyone." "Someone should have," Clara said. "A long time ago." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. Just for a second. Just a brief squeeze of fingers. But Clara felt it all the way to her bones. The second week brought Victoria Shaw. Clara was in the kitchen, always the kitchen, the one place that felt like hers, when she heard the front door open and a woman's voice, high and sweet as poisoned honey. "Samuel, I came as soon as I heard. A secret marriage. How absolutely devastating." Clara wiped her hands on her apron and moved to the doorway. The woman standing in the entrance hall was beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful. Golden hair piled high, a traveling dress in deep red velvet that probably cost more than everything Clara owned combined. Perfect porcelain skin that had never seen a day of real work. Sam stood rigid, his face carefully blank. "Victoria, this is unexpected." "Is it?" Victoria glided closer, placing a gloved hand on his arm. "We've been neighbors for years, Samuel. Friends. I had to come offer my congratulations." The word dripped with insincerity. Ruth appeared at the top of the stairs, and Clara didn't miss the look that passed between her and Victoria. Recognition. Alliance. "Victoria, dear." Ruth descended gracefully. "How kind of you to visit. Have you met Samuel's wife?" All eyes turned to Clara. She stood in the doorway in her flour-dusted dress, her hair escaping its pins, her hands still damp from washing dishes. Everything about her screamed servant, not wife. Victoria's smile widened. "This is her Oh Samuel. I never realized you had such charitable instincts." "Victoria." Sam's voice was ice. "Clara is my wife. You'll show her respect." Of course. Of course." Victoria pressed her hand to her chest in mock apology. "I meant no offense. It's simply unexpected. Last month you told me marriage was the furthest thing from your mind. Now suddenly you're wed to a woman no one has ever heard of." She laughed lightly. One might almost think the whole thing was arranged. Clara's blood ran cold. Ruth's eyes sharpened with interest. Sam stepped forward, placing himself between Victoria and Clara. "I think you should leave." Now. Victoria's smile never wavered. I only wanted to invite you both to dinner, tomorrow night, at my ranch. It's the least I can do to welcome Clara to the community. We decline. Samuel. Ruth's voice cut through the tension. Don't be rude. Victoria is being perfectly hospitable. Surely you and your wife can manage one evening of civilized company. It was a trap. Clara could see it clearly, the alliance between Ruth and Victoria, the way they were circling like wolves around wounded prey. But refusing would only fuel their suspicions. We'd be honored, Clara heard herself say. Everyone turned to stare at her. Clara, Sam started. Your mother is right. It would be rude to refuse such a generous invitation. Clara walked forward, standing beside Sam, close enough that her shoulder brushed his arm. We'll be there, won't we, darling? The endearment came out naturally, too naturally, and when Sam looked down at her, something flickered in his eyes that made her breath catch. Of course, he said slowly. Anything for you. Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Wonderful. I'll see you both tomorrow at 7. She left in a swirl of expensive perfume and barely concealed malice. The moment the door closed, Ruth retired to her room without a word. Clara turned to Sam. I'm sorry. I should have... You were brilliant. Sam's voice was rough. Calling me darling. Standing beside me. You made it look... real. Yeah. He was looking at her strangely again, that same expression from breakfast, like he was seeing her for the first time. Yeah. Real. Clara's heart was doing something dangerous in her chest. She forced herself to step back to create distance. We should prepare for tomorrow, she said. Victoria's going to be looking for any weakness. I know. Sam ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. She's been after the ranch for years. Her land borders ours. If she could prove our marriage is fake, what would she do? Tell the whole territory. Destroy my reputation. Give my mother grounds for that guardianship petition. Sam's jaw clenched. Take everything. Clara felt fear curl in her stomach. Then we don't give her anything to find. How? Tomorrow night. Clara took a breath. Tomorrow night we convince everyone. We act like we can't keep our hands off each other. We act like newlyweds who are so in love it's embarrassing. Sam was very still. You can do that. I can do whatever it takes to protect Lily. Clara met his eyes steadily. The question is, can you... Something shifted in Sam's expression. Darkened. Heated. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I can. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Tomorrow, she would have to touch Sam like a wife. Look at him like a lover. Pretend to feel something she wasn't supposed to feel. Except it wasn't pretending anymore. That was the problem. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, watching him with Lily, seeing him stand up to his mother, feeling his hand in hers, something had shifted. The lines she'd drawn in her mind were blurring. A soft knock at her door made her sit up. Clara? Lily's small voice came through the wood. Are you awake? Clara crossed the room and opened the door. Lily stood in the hallway barefoot, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Nightmare? Clara asked softly. Lily nodded, lower lip trembling. Can I sleep with you? Papa's not in his room? Clara's heart ached. Of course. Come here. She lifted Lily onto the bed and tucked the covers around them both. The little girl curled against her side, still clutching the rabbit. Do you have nightmares too? Lily whispered. Sometimes. What do you dream about? Clara was quiet for a moment. I dream about the orphanage. About waiting by the window for someone to come. About watching other children get picked while I stayed behind. Lily's small hand found Clara's. That's sad. It was. But you know what? Clara squeezed her hand gently. Sometimes the people who are supposed to find us just take longer. Sometimes the family we're meant to have isn't the one we're born with. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Do you think you were supposed to find us, me and Papa? Clara's throat tightened. She thought about the contract in her drawer, the money, the expiration date on everything she was starting to feel. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm glad I did. Lily snuggled closer. Me too. I wish you could stay forever. Clara pressed a kiss to the top of Lily's head, her eyes burning. Go to sleep, sweetheart. But long after Lily's breathing evened out, Clara lay awake staring into the darkness. Forever wasn't part of the deal. 3 months was. And every day that passed leaving was going to hurt more. The dinner at Victoria's ranch was worse than Clara expected. Victoria had invited half the territory, ranchers and their wives, businessmen from Cedar Hollow, the local doctor and his family. Everyone who mattered in Montana society gathered in one room to watch Sam Thornton and his mysterious new wife. Clara wore the only nice dress she owned, besides her wedding dress, a simple blue wool that Sam had bought for her last week, claiming a rancher's wife needed something better than patched cotton. She'd argued, he'd insisted, and now she was grateful, because every other woman in the room was dressed to impress. Breathe, Sam murmured as they walked in together. His hand rested at the small of her back, warm, steady, possessive in a way that shouldn't have made her pulse race. I'm breathing, Clara muttered back. You're also about to break my fingers. Clara realized she was gripping his arm hard enough to leave bruises. She forced herself to relax. Sorry. Don't be. Sam's voice dropped lower. Just remember, we're hopelessly devoted, sickeningly so. Despite everything, Clara almost laughed. Victoria descended on them immediately, her smile sharp as a blade. Samuel, Clara, how wonderful that you could make it. Everyone's been dying to meet the woman who captured our most eligible bachelor. I'm sure they have, Clara said sweetly. Though I think the term is most eligible widower, actually. Victoria's smile flickered. Of course. How silly of me. Clara. A weathered rancher approached his wife trailing behind. I'm Hank Calloway. I run Sam's cattle operations. Been with the family 20 years. Clara remembered the name from Sam's descriptions. The closest thing he had to a father figure. Mr. Calloway, Sam speaks so highly of you. Hank's eyes crinkled. Does he now? Well, I'll be. Never thought I'd see this stubborn boy settle down again. He looked between Clara and Sam with something knowing in his gaze. But I can see why he did. Hank? Sam started. Shush. I'm allowed to embarrass you. It's in my contract. Hank winked at Clara. You're good for him, I can tell. Just don't let him work himself to death, and we'll get along fine. Clara found herself smiling genuinely for the first time all evening. I'll do my best. The dinner itself was an elaborate affair. Multiple courses, fine china, wine that probably cost a fortune. Clara sat beside Sam at the long table, hyper-aware of every accidental brush of their arms every time his leg pressed against hers under the tablecloth. Victoria watched them from across the table with predator's eyes. So, Clara. Victoria's voice carried across the conversation. Tell us about yourself. Where exactly did you grow up? The table quieted. Everyone turned to listen. Clara's throat went dry. I grew up in Missouri, at St. Agnes Home for Children. An orphanage. A woman in green silk wrinkled her nose. How unusual. My wife's background is none of your concern, Mrs. Dalton, Sam said coldly. Oh, I meant no offense. Mrs. Dalton tittered nervously. It's simply that one so rarely meets women of that background in polite society. And what background would that be? Clara asked quietly. Poor unwanted born without the luxury of parents who could keep me. Silence fell like a hammer. Clara. Sam reached for her hand, but she wasn't finished. I've spent my whole life being judged for things I couldn't control. Clara continued, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Where I came from, what I didn't have, who I wasn't. And I've learned that the people who judge hardest are usually the ones with the least to recommend them. Mrs. Dalton went scarlet. Sam's hand found Clara's under the table and squeezed hard. Well said, Mrs. Thornton. Hank raised his glass. To speaking truth, even when it's uncomfortable. A few others raised their glasses hesitantly. Victoria's face was a mask of fury. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of polite conversation and pointed questions. Clara answered them all with Sam's hand anchoring her, his thumb tracing patterns against her palm that made it hard to concentrate. After dessert, Victoria cornered them in the hallway. Quite a performance, Clara. Victoria's voice was silk over steel. You've got them all convinced. But I know a fraud when I see one. Then you must see one every morning in the mirror, Clara replied. Victoria's eyes flashed. You think you're clever. But I've been watching Samuel for years. I know every tell, every weakness. And I know that whatever you two are doing, it isn't real. Believe what you want. Oh, I intend to prove it. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice. I have friends in Laram, in Denver. It won't take long to find the truth about your little arrangement. And when I do... When you do what? Sam appeared at Clara's elbow, his face thunderous. What exactly are you threatening, Victoria? Threatening... Victoria pressed a hand to her chest innocently. I'm simply concerned for your well-being, Samuel. And for dear Lily's. A child deserves a real mother, not a hired one. Sam went very still. Clara felt him coil beside her like a rattlesnake preparing to strike. Get out, Sam said quietly. This is my home. And you just accused my wife of being a fraud in front of guests. I'd say that ends our neighborly relations. Sam took Clara's arm. We're leaving. They walked out of Victoria's house without looking back. The night air hit Clara's flushed cheeks like a slap. Sam? Not here. His voice was tight. Wait until we're in the carriage. They climbed in and the driver started the horses moving. Only then did Sam let out a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. She knows, Clara said. She suspects. It's not the same thing. She's going to investigate. She said she has friends in Laram in Denver. Let her investigate. Sam turned to look at Clara, his face half-shadowed. She won't find anything. The preacher owes me his life. He pulled his son from the river 5 years ago. He won't talk. The marriage certificate is filed under a name that doesn't exist at an office that burned down conveniently last week. Clara stared at him. You burned down a records office. I paid someone to start a small fire, very small, only the one room. Sam's mouth quirked. I told you I'd do whatever it takes. Clara didn't know whether to be horrified or impressed. Sam, Victoria's got nothing, and even if she finds something suspicious, who's going to believe her? The woman who's been trying to get her hands on my ranch for years? The woman everyone knows wants to marry me? Sam shook his head. She's made herself look jealous and petty tonight. That's all anyone will remember. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that they were safe, but she'd seen Victoria's eyes. The cold certainty in them, the promise of destruction. What if she's right? Clara whispered. About what? About this not being real. Sam was quiet for a long moment. The carriage rocked gently, horses' hooves muffled by the snow. Clara, he said finally. Look at me. She turned. In the dim light, his amber eyes were dark and intense. He reached out and cupped her face in his hand, his palm rough and warm against her cheek. What happened tonight? He said slowly. The way you stood up to those people, the way you defended yourself, defended us. His thumb traced along her cheekbone. That was the realest thing I've seen in years. Clara's heart was pounding so hard, she was sure he could hear it. Sam, I know what the contract says. I know what we agreed. His voice roughened. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being fake for me. And I think, he paused, his jaw working. I think maybe it stopped being fake for you too. Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at him. If I'm wrong, tell me, Sam said quietly. Tell me, and I'll never mention it again. We'll go back to the arrangement. Clean, professional, just like you want. Clara opened her mouth to say the safe thing, the smart thing, the thing that would protect her heart from breaking. You're not wrong, she heard herself say. Sam's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, they blazed with something that made Clara's knees weak. Good, he said roughly. That's good. Then he kissed her, not on the forehead like at their wedding, not carefully or gently or safely. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, like he'd been holding back for weeks and couldn't hold back anymore. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back. His mouth moved against hers with hunger and desperation, and something that felt terrifyingly like love. Clara kissed him back, grabbed the front of his coat and pulled him closer. Let herself fall into the fire she'd been fighting since the moment he walked into her kitchen. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. That, Sam said hoarsely, was definitely not in the contract. Clara laughed a shaky, disbelieving sound. No, it wasn't. Sam pressed his forehead to hers. What do we do now? I don't know. Clara's voice trembled. I don't know anything anymore. Then we figure it out together. Sam pulled back enough to look at her. But Clara, whatever this is, I'm not walking away from it. Not for my mother, not for Victoria, not for anyone. Clara wanted to believe him. Wanted it more than she'd ever wanted anything. But she'd spent her whole life learning that good things didn't last, that people left. That hope was just another word for future disappointment. Sam, she whispered. I'm scared. Me too. He kissed her forehead gently. But I'm more scared of losing this. Losing you. The carriage rolled on through the snow. Inside, Clara leaned against Sam's shoulder, his arm around her, her heart too full of feeling to name. Tomorrow, Ruth would keep watching. Victoria would keep scheming. The world would keep trying to tear them apart. But tonight, just for tonight, Clara let herself believe in something she'd never believed in before. That maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found where she belonged. They arrived home to chaos. Hank met them at the door, his weathered face tight with worry. What's wrong? Sam demanded, instantly alert. It's Lily. Hank's voice cracked. She's gone. Clara's blood turned to ice. What do you mean, gone? Sam grabbed Hank's shoulders. Where is she? When did... Your mother put her to bed around 8. Hank's voice shook. When the maid went to check on her an hour ago, the bed was empty. Window was open. Sam released Hank and ran for the stairs. Clara followed, her heart slamming against her ribs. Lily's room was exactly as Hank described. Empty bed, covers thrown back. Window open, letting in gusts of freezing wind that scattered papers across the floor. And on the pillow, a note. Sam snatched it up. His face went white as he read. What does it say? Clara demanded. Sam's hand trembled. He read aloud, his voice barely a whisper. I heard Grandma Ruth talking to the pretty lady. They said Clara isn't my real mama. They said she's going to leave like my other mama did. I don't want to watch her leave, so I'm leaving first. Don't look for me. Love, Lily. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting the urge to scream. Ruth appeared in the doorway, her face carefully composed. Samuel, I'm sure she's just hiding somewhere in the house. Children do this sort of... You. Sam turned on his mother, fury radiating from every line of his body. "What did you say to her? I don't know what you're—" "The note says she heard you talking to Victoria. What did you say?" Ruth's composure cracked just slightly. "I was simply discussing the situation with a concerned neighbor. I didn't know the child was listening." "What did you say?" "The truth." Ruth's voice rose. "That this marriage is a sham. That this woman is going to take your money and disappear. That Lily deserves better than a parade of temporary mothers." Clara felt the words like physical blows. But she didn't have time to hurt, didn't have time to feel anything except the cold terror gripping her chest. "How long ago did the maid check on her?" Clara asked Hank. "Maybe 20 minutes. And the window?" "She went out the window. There's footprints in the snow, small ones, leading toward the north pasture." Clara's stomach dropped. "The north pasture? That's toward the mountains." "It's also toward the old hunting cabin," Sam said. His voice strained. "She knows about it. I took her there last summer." "Sam." Clara gripped his arm. "It's below freezing. She's 6 years old, in a nightgown." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew. In this cold, a child that small had maybe an hour, maybe less. "I'm going after her." Sam was already moving. "Hank, get the men. Search the outbuildings in case she doubled back. Check the barns, the stables, everywhere." "Sam, you can't go alone." "I'll go with him." Clara grabbed her coat from where she'd dropped it. "I'm not staying here." "Clara." "She's out there because of me, because she heard Ruth say I was going to leave." Clara's voice cracked. "I'm not letting her face that alone." Sam looked at her for one long moment. Then he nodded. They ran for the stables. The cold hit Clara like a wall. Even bundled in her heaviest coat, the wind cut through to her bones. Snow stung her face. The world beyond the ranch lights was pure darkness, broken only by the weak beam of Sam's lantern. "Lily!" Sam's voice tore through the night. "Lily, answer me." Nothing. Just wind and the creak of frozen branches. They pushed through snow that reached Clara's knees in places. Her lungs burned. Her feet went numb. But she kept moving, kept searching, kept calling. "There." Sam pointed at a break in the tree line. "Those are her footprints." Clara saw them, small depressions in the snow already filling with fresh powder. They led toward the dark mass of the forest. "She went into the woods." Clara's voice pitched high with fear. "The cabin's about a mile in, if she was trying to reach it." Sam didn't finish. A mile was an eternity for a child in this weather. They plunged into the trees. The forest swallowed them whole. The lantern light seemed weaker here, barely pushing back the darkness. Clara stumbled over hidden roots, caught herself on branches, kept moving. "Lily." Her voice was going hoarse. "Lily, please, I'm not leaving. I'm never leaving. Please just answer me." Still nothing. Sam's hand found hers in the darkness. His grip was crushing, desperate. "We'll find her," Clara said, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring him or herself. "We have to find her." They walked for what felt like hours, minutes, years. Time lost meaning in the cold and the dark. Then Sam stopped so suddenly Clara ran into his back. "There!" His voice broke. "Oh God, there!" Clara looked. A small figure lay curled at the base of a large tree, half buried in snow, not moving. "Lily!" Sam dropped the lantern and ran. Clara was right behind him. Her knees hit the frozen ground hard as she skidded to a stop beside the little girl. Lily was so pale. Her lips were blue. Her nightgown was soaked through her feet, bare and red with cold. But when Sam gathered her into his arms, her eyes fluttered open. "Papa?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You came." "Of course I came." Sam was crying. Clara had never seen him cry before. "Of course I came, baby. I'll always come." Cold. I know. I know. Sam pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her, then tucked her against his chest. We're gonna get you home, okay? We're gonna get you warm. Lily's unfocused eyes found Clara. You're here too. Clara couldn't speak. Could barely see through her tears. She just nodded, reaching out to brush frozen hair from Lily's face. I heard Grandma say you were leaving. Lily's voice faded in and out. I didn't want to watch. It hurt too much when Mama left. I couldn't do it again. Clara's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I'm not leaving, she choked out. Lily, listen to me. I am never leaving you. Not ever. Do you understand? But Grandma said. I don't care what Grandma said. Clara cupped the little girl's frozen cheek. I love you. I love your papa. This isn't pretend anymore. It's real. You're my family now, and I don't abandon my family. Lily's eyes were closing. Promise? I promise. I swear on my life. Okay. A tiny smile crossed Lily's blue lips. Okay, Mama. Then her eyes closed completely. Lily, Sam's voice was raw with terror. Lily, stay awake. Stay with me. No response. We have to move. Clara pulled herself to her feet. Now, she needs warmth. Sam lifted Lily easily, holding her against his chest. The cabin's closer than the house, maybe half a mile. Then we go to the cabin. They ran. Clara didn't know how she kept up with Sam's longer strides. Didn't know where she found the strength. She just knew that Lily was in her arms, their arms, and nothing else mattered. The cabin appeared like a ghost through the trees. Small, dark, abandoned. Sam kicked the door open and carried Lily inside. Clara followed, already looking for anything that could help. There's a fireplace. Dry wood beside it. She moved frantically. I'll get a fire started. She's not shivering anymore. Sam's voice was hollow. Clara, she's not shivering. Clara knew what that meant. When you stopped shivering, your body was giving up. Just hold her. Keep her close to your body heat. Clara's hands shook as she stacked wood in the fireplace. Talk to her. Keep her connected. Sam sat on the floor, Lily cradled against his chest, rocking her gently. Hey, little bit. Remember last summer when we came here? We found that bird's nest in the rafters. You wanted to take the baby birds home. No response. I said we couldn't, that the mama bird needed them. You cried for an hour. Sam's voice cracked. I hated saying no to you, always have. You got your mama's eyes, you know, that same color, same stubbornness. Clara struck a match, struck another. Her hands were too numb, too clumsy. Come on, she whispered. Come on, please. The third match caught. Tiny flame. She nursed it carefully, feeding it with dry leaves, then small twigs, then larger pieces. Heat. Finally, blessed heat. Clara moved back to Sam and Lily, wrapping her arms around them both. Keep talking to her, she said. She needs to hear your voice. I ran out of things to say. Then I'll talk. Clara pressed her cheek to Lily's frozen hair. Hey, sweetheart. Did I ever tell you about the first time I made bread? I was 8 years old. The orphanage kitchen let me help sometimes, and I put salt in instead of sugar. The whole batch was ruined. Sister Margaret made me eat a piece anyway, just so I'd remember. A tiny sound, almost a laugh. Clara's heart lurched. Lily, can you hear me? That's a dumb story. Lily's voice was thread thin. More. Clara laughed through her tears. More? Okay, I've got more. She talked. Sam talked. They took turns sharing stories and memories and anything that came to mind. The fire grew stronger, pushing back the cold, and slowly and possibly, color returned to Lily's cheeks. I'm hungry, Lily finally said, her voice stronger. Sam made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Of course you are. Can Clara make pancakes when we get home? Yeah, baby. Clara can make pancakes. Lily's eyes found Clara's. With chocolate chips. Clara smiled, tears still streaming down her face. With all the chocolate chips you want. So, The search party found them an hour later. Hank led the way lantern high, followed by half a dozen ranch hands. When he saw Lily awake and talking, his weathered face crumpled with relief. Thank God. Thank God Almighty. They wrapped Lily in more blankets and carried her home in a makeshift stretcher. The doctor was waiting when they arrived, summoned from Cedar Hollow despite the late hour. Mild frostbite on the toes, some hypothermia, but she's going to be fine. Dr. Patterson closed his bag. Another 30 minutes out there, though. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Ruth stood in the corner of Lily's room, silent and pale. When the doctor left, Sam turned on her. Get out. Samuel. Get out. I never intended for her to overhear. I never thought she would. You told Victoria my marriage was fake, in my own house, where my daughter could hear. Sam's voice was deadly quiet. You nearly killed her tonight, Mama, with your scheming and your manipulation and your goddamn certainty that you know what's best. Ruth flinched like she'd been slapped. I was trying to protect her. No, you were trying to control me, like you've always tried to control me. Sam stepped closer, and Ruth actually backed away. But I'm done. You want a guardianship hearing, fine. We'll have one, and I'll tell the judge exactly what happened tonight, how your words drove a 6-year-old into a blizzard. Ruth's face went gray. Samuel, please. I'm your mother. Then start acting like it. Sam pointed at the door. There's a stage to Denver in the morning. I expect you to be on it. And if I refuse, then I'll have you removed. Sam's voice held no mercy. Your choice. Ruth looked at Clara, hatred burning in her eyes. You've turned him against me. No, ma'am. Clara met her gaze steadily. You did that yourself. Ruth gathered the shreds of her dignity and walked out without another word. Clara sank into the chair beside Lily's bed. Her hands were still shaking. Her whole body was still shaking. Is she really leaving? Lily's sleepy voice came from the pillows. Sam sat on the edge of the bed, stroking his daughter's hair. Yeah, a little bit. She's really leaving. Good. Lily's eyes drifted closed. She's mean. Despite everything, Clara laughed. Sam looked at her, and something passed between them. Exhaustion and relief and love all tangled together. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For going out there with me. For not giving up. For... His voice caught. For being exactly what she needed. What we both needed. Clara reached across the bed and took his hand. I meant what I said out there. This isn't pretend anymore. Not for me. Not for me either. Sam lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. I love you, Clara. I don't care about the contract or the arrangement or any of it. I just want you, here, with us, forever. Clara felt tears threatening again. Forever's a long time. Not long enough. Lily made a small sound, and they both looked down. She was smiling in her sleep, one hand reaching out to touch Clara's arm. She called me Mama, Clara whispered. Back in the woods. Did you hear? I heard. I never thought... Clara's voice broke. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A home. Someone who wanted me. Sam pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. You have it now. You have us. They sat together in the quiet room, watching Lily sleep, the fire crackling in the background. Outside, the storm was finally dying down. Clara leaned her head against Sam's shoulder and let herself believe. Victoria arrived the next afternoon. Clara saw her carriage approaching from the kitchen window and felt her stomach clench. After everything that had happened after the night they'd survived, she'd hoped for at least a day of peace. She should have known better. Stay here, Sam said, already heading for the door. I'll handle this. No. Clara set down her dish towel. I'm coming with you. They met Victoria on the porch. She was dressed immaculately as always, but there was something different about her face, something almost triumphant. "Samuel, Clara." Victoria smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. "I heard about last night's excitement. So fortunate that little Lily is recovering." "What do you want, Victoria?" Sam's voice was flat. "Straight to business. Very well." Victoria pulled a folded paper from her reticule. "I have here a document from the Laram Records office, or rather from what remains of it after that convenient fire." Clara's blood ran cold. "It seems," Victoria continued, "that a clerk managed to save several documents before the flames reached them, including a very interesting marriage certificate, or should I say, a very interesting lack of one." Sam didn't move, didn't react. "There's no record of your marriage, Samuel. Not in Laram, not anywhere in the territory." Victoria's smile widened. "Your mother was right. This whole thing is a fraud." "And what do you intend to do with this information?" Sam asked quietly. "That depends entirely on you." Victoria stepped closer. "Marry me. For real. Merge our ranches like we should have done years ago. And I'll forget this document ever existed. And if I refuse, then I take this to the court, to the newspapers, to everyone who matters." Victoria's voice hardened. "Your reputation will be destroyed, your business relationship severed, and your mother will have all the ammunition she needs to take Lily away from you." Clara felt sick. After everything they'd survived, after all they'd been through, it was going to end like this. "You're actually willing to destroy a child's life over land?" Clara asked. Victoria's eyes cut to her. "Stay out of this. You're nothing but a hired servant playing dress-up." "She's my wife." Sam's voice cracked like a whip. "And you'll address her with respect." "She's not your wife. That's the whole point." Victoria waved the document. "So what's it going to be, Samuel, me, or ruin?" The silence stretched unbearable. Clara waited for Sam to calculate, to bargain, to find some way out. That's what he did. That's who he was. Instead, he laughed. Victoria's smile faltered. "What's so funny? You think you've won." Sam shook his head. "You really think you've won?" "I have the proof. You have a piece of paper that says we weren't married 3 months ago." Sam pulled Clara against his side. "But here's the thing, Victoria. We got married again. Properly. Yesterday." Clara blinked. "We did. Pastor Williams came by this morning while you were sleeping. Hank witnessed. So did the doctor." Sam's eyes never left Victoria's face. "Check the records if you want. Filed legally in Cedar Hollow. Mrs. Clara Thornton. For real this time." Victoria's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Confusion. Disbelief. Fury. "You're lying." "Am I?" Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded certificate. "See for yourself." Victoria snatched it from his hand, her eyes scanning the document. Her face paled. "This can't... You couldn't have..." "I told you before." Sam's voice was calm and cold. "I will do whatever it takes to protect my family. Whatever it takes. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate something like this?" Victoria crumpled the paper in her fist. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Sam stepped forward, and Victoria actually retreated. "You come near my wife again, you threaten my family again, and I will destroy you. Not your reputation, not your business. You. I'll buy your debts. Yes, I know about those. I'll call in every favor I'm owed. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to buy a cup of coffee in this territory. You wouldn't... Try me." The mask finally cracked. Underneath Victoria's polished exterior, Clara glimpsed something pathetic, something desperate and lonely and afraid. "I loved you," Victoria whispered. "I've loved you for years. Why couldn't you just..." "Because you don't know what love means." Sam's voice softened just slightly. Love isn't about ownership or control or merging business interests. Love is running into a blizzard to save a child. Love is standing by someone when everything falls apart. Love is choosing someone every single day, not because you have to, but because you can't imagine not. He looked at Clara as he said it, and her heart filled to bursting. Go home, Victoria. Sam turned away. Find someone who actually wants you. Build something real, but stay away from my family. Victoria stood frozen for a long moment. Then, without another word, she walked back to her carriage and drove away. Clara let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Did you really this morning? Pastor Williams owed me a favor. Sam pulled her into his arms. Figured we might as well make it official while he was in the area. You could have told me. You were exhausted, and I wasn't sure it would matter until Victoria showed up. Sam pulled back to look at her. You're not angry. Clara laughed a bright, disbelieving sound. You just saved our family. How could I possibly be angry? Our family. Sam's voice caught on the words. Say that again. Our family. Yours, mine, and Lily's. Clara pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart beat strong beneath her palm. Ours. Sam kissed her, then soft and deep and full of promise. Papa. Clara, are you kissing again? They broke apart to find Lily watching from the doorway, wrapped in blankets, a gap-toothed grin on her face. Maybe, Sam called back. You should be in bed. I got bored. Also, I heard yelling. Who was the mean lady? Nobody important. Clara held out her hand. Come here, sweetheart. Your father has something to tell you. Lily shuffled over, still wrapped in her blankets like a small mobile cocoon. Sam lifted her easily, settling her on his hip. Lily, I need you to understand something, he said seriously. Am I in trouble? No. But I need you to listen. Sam glanced at Clara, then back at his daughter. Clara and I are married now. Really married. Not pretend anymore. Lily's eyes widened. Really, really? Really, really? She's going to be your mama. Your real mama. Forever. Lily looked at Clara. Does that mean you'll never leave? Clara's eyes burned. That's exactly what it means. And you'll make pancakes whenever I want. Within reason. And you'll read me stories every night. Every single night. And you'll still love me even when I'm bad. Clara felt her heart crack open. She reached out and touched Lily's cheek gently. There is nothing you could ever do that would make me stop loving you, Clara said. Nothing. I waited my whole life for a family, and now that I have you and your father, I am never, ever letting go. Lily threw her arms around Clara's neck, nearly toppling out of Sam's grip. Clara caught her, pulling her close, breathing in the little girl scent of soap and something indefinably sweet. I love you, Mama. Lily whispered against her shoulder. Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, baby. So much. Sam wrapped his arms around them both, and they stood there in the cold morning light, a family forged not by blood, but by choice, by love, by the simple, profound decision to belong to each other. Behind them, the door of the ranch house stood open. Ahead, the mountains rose white and eternal against the endless sky. And Clara Thornton, no longer. Clara Whitmore, no longer the orphan. Nobody wanted, knew she was finally home. 3 weeks of peace. Clara hadn't known peace could feel like this. Waking up beside Sam every morning, making breakfast while Lily chatted about her dreams. Working in the kitchen that had become truly hers, filling the house with the smell of fresh bread and cinnamon. Ruth had left on the Denver stage without another word. Victoria hadn't been seen since her defeat on the porch. The ranch hands had accepted Clara as Mrs. Thornton without question, tipping their hats when she passed, thanking her for the meals she prepared. It was everything Clara had never dared to dream about, which was why when the stranger rode up to the ranch on a frozen February afternoon, She knew immediately that something was wrong. She was kneading bread dough when Hank appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Ma'am, there's a man here asking for you." Clara's hands stilled. "For me specifically?" "Asked for Clara Whitmore. Didn't know that name, but he described you pretty clear." Hank's weathered face was troubled. "Said he's from Missouri, from someplace called St. Agnes." The blood drained from Clara's face. St. Agnes, the orphanage, the place she'd spent 16 years trying to forget. "Clara." Hank stepped closer. "You all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have." Clara wiped her hands on her apron, her fingers trembling. "Where is he?" "Parlor. Sam's in there too. Wouldn't let him in the house without supervision." Clara's legs felt weak as she walked toward the parlor. Each step brought memories flooding back. Cold dormitories, hunger that gnawed at her belly, and worst of all, the man who had run St. Agnes with an iron fist and cruel hands. Thomas Whitmore. She stopped in the parlor doorway. He looked older than she remembered. Grayer. Thinner. But those eyes cold and calculating as a snake's hadn't changed at all. He sat in the best chair like he owned it, a cup of tea in his hands that he hadn't touched. Sam stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, watching the stranger with barely concealed hostility. "Ah, there she is." Thomas rose, spreading his arms wide. "Little Clara, though I suppose you're not so little anymore." "Mr. Whitmore." Clara's voice came out flat. "What are you doing here?" "Is that any way to greet the man who raised you?" Thomas pressed a hand to his chest in mock hurt. "I came all this way just to see how my girl was doing." "I'm not your girl. I never was." Now. Such hostility. Thomas's smile didn't waver. "And after everything I did for you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a roof over your head." Sam stepped forward. "Clara, who is this man?" "Thomas Whitmore." Clara forced the words out. "He ran the orphanage where I grew up. Director of St. Agnes Home for Children." Thomas gave a little bow. 23 years of dedicated service to the community's unfortunate youth. Dedicated service. Clara laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "Clara." Sam's voice sharpened with concern. "What's going on?" Thomas answered before Clara could. "I'm afraid there's been a small misunderstanding. You see, when Clara left St. Agnes at 16, she failed to settle certain financial obligations." "Financial obligations?" Clara's voice rose. "I was an orphan. What financial obligations could I possibly have?" "Room and board, my dear. 16 years of food, shelter, education." Thomas pulled a folded paper from his coat. "According to my records, you owe St. Agnes exactly $437. Clara felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "That's insane. You can't charge orphans for—" "I most certainly can. It's all perfectly legal. The state of Missouri allows charitable institutions to recover costs when their charges reach adulthood." Thomas's smile turned predatory. "Of course, if you can't pay, there are other arrangements we could make." Sam moved between Clara and Thomas, his body tense with barely contained fury. "Get out!" "I beg your pardon. I said get out of my house." "Now, Mr. Thornton, there's no need for unpleasantness." Thomas tucked the paper back into his coat. "I'm sure we can come to some reasonable—" "There's nothing reasonable about blackmail." Sam's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Because that's what this is, isn't it? You heard Clara married a wealthy rancher and you came here to squeeze money out of her." Thomas's mask slipped just for a moment. Underneath was something ugly and cold. "I came here," he said softly, "to collect what I'm owed, one way or another. And if we refuse to pay, then I'll be forced to take legal action." Thomas shrugged. "Of course, legal action means public records, court proceedings, newspaper coverage, Everyone in Montana will know that Mrs. Clara Thornton is nothing but a debtor fleeing her obligations. Clara felt sick. After everything, after Ruth, after Victoria, after nearly losing Lily, here was another threat. Another person trying to destroy what she'd built. "How much?" Sam asked flatly. "Sam, no. How much to make you go away forever?" Thomas considered. $500. Plus my silence about certain incidents from Clara's time at St. Agnes. Clara's blood turned to ice. "What incidents?" "Oh, I think you know." Thomas's eyes glittered. "The fire in the kitchen that nearly burned down the whole building. The food that went missing from the pantry. The time you struck Sister Margaret across the face. She struck me first." "Is that what you'd like the newspapers to print? Rancher's wife has history of violence and theft." Thomas spread his hands. "I'm sure that would do wonders for your husband's business relationships." Sam looked at Clara, and she saw the question in his eyes. Is any of this true? She wanted to explain, wanted to tell him that yes, there had been a fire, but it was an accident. That yes, she'd stolen food, but only because they were starving. That yes, she'd hit Sister Margaret, but only after the woman beat her bloody for a crime she didn't commit. But the words stuck in her throat, choked by 16 years of shame and fear. "Get out," Sam said again. "And don't come back." "Mr. Thornton, if you're still on my property in 5 minutes, I'll have my men escort you off. Forcibly." Sam's hand moved to the gun at his hip. "Your choice." Thomas's eyes flickered to the weapon. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then he smiled, that cold, reptile smile that had haunted Clara's nightmares for years. "I'll be at the hotel in Cedar Hollow. 3 days. After that, I go to the newspapers." He tipped his hat to Clara. "Lovely seeing you again, my dear. You've grown into quite the young woman." He walked out. The front door closed behind him. Clara's knees gave out. She would have fallen if Sam hadn't caught her. "Clara, Clara, look at me." Sam cupped her face in his hands. "Tell me what happened. Tell me the truth." The whole story came out. The hunger, the cold, the endless small cruelties that defined life at St. Agnes. Thomas Whitmore's wandering hands that she'd learned to avoid. The fire she'd accidentally started trying to cook extra food for the younger children. The theft she'd committed to keep them from starving. The day Sister Margaret caught her and beat her until she fought back. Sam listened without interrupting. His face grew darker with every word. "I should have told you." Clara finished, her voice raw. "I should have told you from the beginning." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was ashamed." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Because I thought if you knew where I came from, what I'd done, you wouldn't want me anymore. Nobody ever wants me when they know the truth." Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "Listen to me," he said fiercely. "Nothing you just told me changes anything. You survived hell. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and those children. That doesn't make you a criminal. That makes you a survivor. But the newspapers. Let him go to the newspapers. Let him tell the whole territory." Sam pulled back to look at her. "You think anyone who knows you would believe that man's lies? You think Hank would, the ranch hands, the women who come to buy your bread? Sam, I love you." He said it like a vow. "I love every part of you, including the parts you're ashamed of. And I will burn this whole territory to the ground before I let that man hurt you." Clara wanted to believe him. Wanted it more than she'd ever wanted anything. But Thomas Whitmore had already destroyed her once. She wasn't sure she could survive it again. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed beside Sam, listening to his steady breathing, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Thomas Whitmore's face. That cold smile. Those dead eyes. Around midnight, she slipped out of bed and went downstairs. The kitchen was dark and quiet. Clara lit a single candle and sat at the table trying to think. $500. It wasn't an impossible sum. Sam could afford it easily. But paying would only encourage Thomas to come back for more. Men like him were never satisfied. And the threats about the newspapers. Even if nobody believed him, the scandal would damage Sam's business relationships, would make Lily a target for cruel whispers and pointed stares. Clara pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting despair. A small voice broke the silence. "Mama?" Clara looked up. Lily stood in the doorway, bare feet and nightgown, clutching her worn rabbit. "Sweetheart, what are you doing up?" "I heard you leave." Lily padded across the kitchen and climbed into Clara's lap. "Are you sad?" Clara wrapped her arms around the little girl, breathing in her sweet, sleepy scent. "A little." "Is it because of the mean man who came today?" "You saw him." "I was on the stairs. Papa told me to stay in my room, but I wanted to see." Lily looked up at Clara with wise, worried eyes. "He made you cry. I don't like him." "I don't like him either, baby." "Is he going to make you go away?" Clara's heart clenched. "No, nobody is going to make me go away." "Promise." "I promise." Clara kissed the top of Lily's head. "But I need you to do something for me." "Okay, I need you to be extra good for Papa and Hank while I figure this out." "Figure what out?" Clara hesitated. "How did you explain adult problems to a 6-year-old? Sometimes," she said carefully, "people from the past come back to cause trouble. And sometimes you have to be brave and stand up to them even when you're scared." Lily nodded seriously. "Like when Papa stood up to Grandma Ruth." "Exactly like that." "And you stood up to the pretty lady." "Victoria, yes." "So, you're going to stand up to the mean man." Clara looked into Lily's trusting eyes, and something shifted in her chest. Something hardened. She had spent her whole life running from the orphanage, running from her past, running from anyone who might get close enough to hurt her. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had Sam. She had Lily. She had a family worth fighting for. "Yes," Clara said quietly. "I'm going to stand up to him." The next morning, Clara told Sam her plan. "Absolutely not." His face went dark with fury. "You're not going anywhere near that man alone." "I have to. He wants to control me through fear. The only way to stop him is to show him I'm not afraid anymore." "Clara." "Sam, listen." Clara took his hands. "I spent 16 years being afraid of Thomas Whitmore. 16 years letting him have power over me. If I pay him off or hide behind you, I'm just giving him more power. And if something happens to you, I'll meet him in public. At the hotel restaurant. Plenty of witnesses." Clara squeezed his hands. "Trust me. Please." Sam's jaw worked. She could see him fighting every protective instinct, every urge to wrap her in cotton and keep her safe. "Fine," he finally said. "But I'm going to be nearby. If anything goes wrong, you'll come running. I know." Clara rose on her toes and kissed him. "That's why I love you." The Cedar Hollow Hotel was crowded at midday. Clara walked in with her head high and her heart pounding. She spotted Thomas Whitmore at a corner table, sipping coffee like he owned the place. "Ah, Clara." He gestured to the chair across from him. "So glad you could join me. I assume you've come to discuss payment?" Clara sat down. Her hands were steady, even if her heart wasn't. "I've come to tell you that you're not getting a single cent." Thomas's smile flickered. "I beg your pardon. I looked into your claims. The law you cited, it doesn't exist. Missouri doesn't allow orphanages to collect debts from former charges." Clara pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "I had a lawyer friend of Sam's verify it." Something ugly flashed across Thomas's face. "Legal technicalities don't matter when reputation is at stake." "You mean your reputation?" Clara leaned forward. "Because I also wrote to the current director of St. Agnes, Sister Catherine. She was very interested to hear about your debt collection scheme." Thomas went pale. "You didn't." "I did." She's already contacted the Missouri authorities. Clara felt a cold satisfaction spreading through her chest. Apparently you tried this same con on 3 other former orphans. One of them kept records. Detailed records. Those records prove nothing. They prove fraud. They prove extortion. Clara's voice hardened. And they prove that you've been stealing from St. Agnes for years, embezzling funds meant for the children. Thomas lunged across the table, grabbing Clara's wrist. You stupid little... Let go of my wife. Sam's voice cut through the restaurant like a gunshot. He stood behind Thomas, one hand on the man's shoulder, the other resting on his holstered pistol. Now. Thomas released Clara's wrist instantly. Mr. Thornton, this is a private conversation. Not anymore. Sam pulled Clara to her feet, tucking her behind him. The sheriff's waiting outside. You're going to walk out of here quietly and get in his wagon. On what charges? Fraud, extortion, attempted assault. Sam's voice was ice. That's just for starters. I'm sure the Missouri authorities will add more once you're in custody. For the first time, real fear flickered in Thomas Whitmore's eyes. You can't do this. I have rights. You have nothing. Clara stepped around Sam to face her tormentor one last time. You spent my whole childhood making me feel worthless, making me believe I deserved nothing, that nobody would ever want me. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. But you were wrong. I have a husband who loves me, a daughter who calls me mama, a home, a family, a life. And you? You're going to prison. Alone. Forgotten. Clara straightened. That's what nothing looks like. Sheriff Patterson appeared in the restaurant doorway, 2 deputies at his back. Mr. Whitmore. Come with me, please. Thomas looked around wildly, searching for escape, but there was none. The restaurant patrons watched with cold curiosity. Sam blocked one exit. The sheriff blocked the other. Finally, his shoulders slumped. This isn't over, he muttered as the deputies took his arms. Yes, Clara said quietly. It is. They led him away. Clara watched until he disappeared through the door, then let out a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her soul. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. You were incredible, he murmured into her hair. Absolutely incredible. I was terrified. That's what made it incredible. Sam pulled back to look at her, his amber eyes shining. You faced the man who haunted your nightmares, and you destroyed him. Clara laughed a wet, shaky sound. I had help. You did the hard part. Sam cupped her face in his hands. You chose to stop running. That took more courage than anything I've ever seen. Clara rose on her toes and kissed him, not caring that half the town was watching through the restaurant windows. Let them watch. Let them see. She had nothing left to hide. They were halfway home when Clara saw the smoke. At first, she thought it was a cloud, dark and low on the horizon. But clouds didn't rise in thick black columns. Clouds didn't smell like burning wood. Sam! Clara grabbed his arm. Sam, look! He saw it too. His face went white. That's the ranch. He whipped the horses into a gallop. The wagon careened over frozen ruts, nearly throwing Clara off the seat twice. She held on desperately, her heart in her throat. Please, she prayed. Please not Lily. Not our home. Please. They crested the final hill, and Clara's worst fears materialized before her eyes. The main house was engulfed in flames. Ranch hands ran everywhere, carrying buckets, shouting orders. Hank's voice rose above the chaos, directing the firefighting efforts. Animals screamed in distant corrals. But Clara saw only one thing. A small figure in the upstairs window. Lily. She's trapped, Clara screamed. Sam was already off the wagon, running toward the inferno. But the front door was a wall of fire. The windows on the ground floor had shattered from the heat. "Papa!" Lily's voice came thin and terrified from above. "Papa, I can't get out." "The ladder!" Hank shouted. "Get the ladder from the barn!" But the barn was too far. The flames were spreading too fast. Clara moved without thinking. She grabbed a blanket from the wagon, plunged it into the water trough, and wrapped it around herself. "Clara, no!" Sam grabbed her arm. "You can't. She's my daughter." Clara pulled free. "Our daughter." She ran into the fire. The heat hit her like a physical wall. Even through the wet blanket, it seared her skin, stole her breath. Smoke filled her lungs. Her eyes streamed with tears. But she kept moving. Through the kitchen she knew so well. Up the stairs that were starting to buckle. Down the hallway that had become her home. Lily's door was blocked by a fallen beam. Clara didn't stop. Didn't think. She threw her shoulder against the beam with everything she had. Pain exploded through her body. The beam didn't move. She hit it again, again, again. On the fourth try, it shifted just enough for her to squeeze through. Lily was huddled in the corner of her room, clutching her worn rabbit, coughing violently. "Mama!" She flung herself into Clara's arms. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Clara wrapped the wet blanket around them both. "Hold on to me. Don't let go." "I'm scared." "I know, but we're going to be okay. I promise." Clara lifted Lily and turned back toward the door. The hallway was an inferno now. Flames crawled up the walls, licked at the ceiling. The floor groaned ominously beneath their feet. There was no way back. Clara turned to the window. It was a 2-story drop, onto frozen ground, with a 6-year-old in her arms. But Sam was down there. She could see him, his face a mask of terror, arms outstretched. "Jump!" he screamed. "Clara, jump!" Clara pulled Lily tight against her chest. "Close your eyes, sweetheart." "Mama, close your eyes and hold on." She jumped. The world spun. Wind rushed past her ears. Lily screamed against her chest. Then Sam's arms caught them both. The impact sent all 3 of them tumbling to the frozen ground. Clara's shoulder hit hard. Pain lanced through her body. But she held on to Lily, held on even as the world went gray around the edges. Get them back. Get them away from the house. Hands pulled her across the snow, away from the flames, away from the heat. Clara looked up at the sky, watching sparks rise like angry stars into the night. Then, everything went black. She woke in the guest cottage. Every part of her body hurt. Her shoulder throbbed. Her lungs burned. Her skin felt raw and tender. But Sam's face was the first thing she saw. His eyes red-rimmed, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his hand gripping hers like he'd never let go. "Lily." Clara's voice came out as a croak. "She's fine, thanks to you." Sam's voice broke. "Clara, you ran into a burning building. She was trapped. You could have died. She's my daughter." Clara tried to sit up and winced at the pain. "I would do it again. 100 times." Sam made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He pressed his forehead to hers, his tears falling onto her cheeks. "Don't ever scare me like that again. Please." "I'll try not to." "I mean it." Sam pulled back to look at her. "When I saw you go into that fire, when the ceiling collapsed and I thought—" He couldn't finish. Clara reached up and touched his face gently. "I'm here. I'm okay. We're all okay. The house is gone. We'll rebuild. Everything we had, everything that matters is right here." Clara squeezed his hand. "You, me, Lily, that's all that counts." The door creaked open. Lily appeared, her face tear-streaked, her rabbit clutched tight. "Mama, you're awake. Come here, baby." Lily ran across the room and climbed onto the bed, careful not to jostle Clara's injuries. She curled against Clara's side, her small body trembling. "I was so scared," Lily whispered. "The fire started so fast. I couldn't find the door. I thought, shh, it's over now." Clara stroked her hair. "Everything's going to be okay." "The mean lady started it." Clara and Sam both went still. "What mean lady?" Sam asked carefully. "The one with the yellow hair, Miss Victoria." Lily's voice was small. "I saw her from my window. She was putting something by the house. Then she lit a match and ran away." Clara met Sam's eyes over Lily's head, saw the same cold fury she felt burning in her own chest. Victoria. The woman who couldn't have Sam had decided that if she couldn't have him, no one would. "Sam." Clara's voice was steady despite the rage coursing through her. "Go." "Clara. Go. Find her. Make her pay for what she did." Sam hesitated, looking between Clara and Lily. "I'll be fine. Lily will take care of me." Clara squeezed his hand. "But if Victoria gets away with this—" "She won't." Sam's face hardened into something dangerous. "I promise you, she won't." He kissed Clara's forehead, kissed Lily's head, and strode out of the cottage. Clara listened to his boots crunch across the frozen ground, heard him calling for Hank for the ranch hands, heard horses being saddled. Then silence. Lily snuggled closer. "Is Papa going to catch the mean lady?" "Yes, sweetheart. He is." "Good." Lily's voice was drowsy. "She hurt our house. She hurt you. She deserves to be caught." Clara held her daughter close and stared at the ceiling. Victoria Shaw had tried to destroy them, had tried to burn everything they'd built to the ground. But she'd failed. The house could be rebuilt. The wounds would heal. And Victoria would face justice for what she'd done. Clara closed her eyes, breathing through the pain. They'd survived Thomas Whitmore. They'd survived Ruth's schemes. They'd survived the fire. Whatever came next, they would survive that too. Together. Sam didn't come home that night. Clara lay awake in the guest cottage, Lily curled against her side, listening to every sound. The creak of settling wood, the howl of wind across frozen ground, the distant murmur of ranch hands keeping watch, but no hoofbeats, no Sam. Dawn came gray and cold. Clara forced herself out of bed despite the pain screaming through her body. Her shoulder was a mass of bruises. Her lungs still burned with each breath. But she couldn't lie still, couldn't wait. Hank appeared in the doorway just as she finished dressing. "Any word?" Clara asked. Hank's weathered face was grim. They tracked her to the old mining camp up north. Sheriff Patterson went with them. And she's holed up in one of the abandoned shafts. Got a rifle. Says she'll kill anyone who comes near. Clara's blood ran cold. "Sam, he's fine. For now." Hank hesitated. "But ma'am, he ain't thinking straight. He wants to go in after her himself." Of course he did. Sam Thornton, who would burn down the world to protect his family, who had watched Victoria try to destroy everything he loved. "I need a horse," Clara said. "Ma'am, you can barely stand. I need a horse, Hank." Something in her voice must have convinced him. He nodded once and left. Clara turned to find Lily awake, watching her with those two wise eyes. "You're going to help Papa," Lily said quietly. "Yes, baby." "Because he's going to do something dumb if you don't." Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "Yes, that's exactly right. I'll stay with Hank's wife." Lily climbed out of bed and hugged Clara carefully, avoiding her injuries. "Tell Papa I love him, and don't let him get shot." Clara pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "I'll do my best." The ride to the mining camp nearly killed her. Every jostle sent fresh agony through Clara's battered body. Her shoulder screamed, her lungs burned. By the time she spotted the cluster of horses and men near the old shaft entrance, she was shaking so badly she could barely hold the reins. But she kept going, because Sam needed her. She found him crouched behind a pile of mining debris, rifle in hand, face set in murderous determination. Clara. He spun when he heard her approach, eyes going wide. What the hell are you doing here? Stopping you from getting killed. Clara dismounted and nearly collapsed. Sam caught her, his fury instantly transformed to concern. You should be in bed. You're injured. And you're about to storm an armed woman's hideout alone. Clara gripped his arm. Sam, listen to me. Victoria wants this. She wants you to come after her. She wants you to make a mistake. She burned our home. She almost killed you and Lily. I know. But if you go in there and she shoots you, who wins? Clara cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Lily can't lose her father. I can't lose my husband. Please. Sam's jaw worked. She could see the war in his eyes, the rage fighting against reason. She has to pay, he said hoarsely. She will, but let the law handle it. Clara glanced at Sheriff Patterson, who stood nearby looking relieved at her intervention. Let them do their job. And if they can't, then we figure out something together. Clara pressed her forehead to his. That's what we do now. Together. Remember. For a long moment, Sam didn't move. His body was coiled tight as a spring, ready to explode. Then slowly, the tension drained out of him. Together, he repeated quietly. Together. Sheriff Patterson cleared his throat. Ma'am, I hate to interrupt, but we've got a situation. Miss Shaw just called out. Says she wants to talk. Clara and Sam both turned. To who? Sam demanded. To Mrs. Thornton. Clara walked toward the mine entrance alone. Every step felt like walking into the mouth of a monster. The cold bit through her clothes. Her injuries throbbed with each heartbeat. Behind her, Sam and the sheriff watched with barely contained tension. That's close enough. Victoria's voice echoed from the darkness. Stop there. Clara stopped. I wanted you to see. Victoria's voice was ragged, nothing like the polished society woman from before. I wanted you to watch it all burn. Your house, your family, everything you stole from me. I didn't steal anything, Victoria. Liar? The word echoed off stone walls. He was supposed to be mine. I waited for years. I was patient. I was perfect. And then you came along, you a nobody, an orphan, a servant, and he chose you. He didn't choose me over you. Clara kept her voice steady, despite her pounding heart. He chose love over obligation. There's a difference. Love. Victoria laughed bitterly. You think he loves you. You think any man could really love someone like you. I know he does. Clara took another step forward. But this isn't about Sam anymore, is it? This is about you, about what you've lost. Silence from the mine. You set fire to a house with a child inside, Clara continued. A 6-year-old girl who never did anything to hurt you. Whatever you felt for Sam, whatever you wanted, is this who you are? Someone who burns children. I didn't know she was there. Victoria's voice cracked. I thought everyone was gone. I just wanted to destroy something. I wanted him to feel what I felt. And now, do you feel better? No answer. Clara took another step. Victoria, I know what it's like to want something so badly you can taste it. To watch someone else get what you deserve. To feel like the whole world is against you. You don't know anything. I grew up in an orphanage. Clara's voice softened. 16 years of watching other children get picked, get loved, get families, while I stayed behind waiting for someone who never came. Victoria was quiet. I understand pain, Clara continued. I understand loneliness, but I also know that destroying other people's happiness doesn't create your own. It just makes the emptiness bigger. It's too late for me. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. I've ruined everything. It's not too late. Clara held out her hand, even though Victoria couldn't see it. Come out. Face what you've done. Maybe you can't fix it, but you can stop making it worse." Long silence. So long that Clara began to wonder if Victoria had found another way out. Then footsteps. Slow, hesitant. Victoria Shaw emerged from the mine, looking nothing like the polished woman who had threatened them. Her golden hair was tangled and dirty. Her expensive dress was torn. Her face was streaked with tears and soot. She held the rifle loosely pointed at the ground. "I loved him," she said quietly. "I really did. I know." Clara met her eyes without flinching. But love that destroys isn't really love. It's just possession wearing a prettier name. Victoria's face crumpled. She dropped the rifle. Sheriff Patterson moved in immediately, deputies flanking him. Victoria didn't resist as they took her arms, didn't struggle as they led her away. But as she passed Clara, she stopped. "You saved her," Victoria whispered. "The little girl. You ran into the fire." "Yes. I wouldn't have done that. Not for anyone." Victoria's eyes were hollow. "Maybe that's the difference between us." She let the deputies lead her to the waiting wagon. Clara stood frozen, watching until Victoria disappeared from sight. Then her knees buckled. Sam caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you." His voice was rough with emotion. "I've got you." "Is it over?" Clara whispered. "It's over. She's going to prison. For a long time." Clara pressed her face against his chest and let herself fall apart.
Jar.
They rebuilt the house in spring. The whole community came to help. Ranch hands, neighbors, even people from Cedar Hollow who barely knew them. They arrived with tools and timber and food, working from dawn until dusk. Clara watched from the guest cottage as walls rose from ashes. Watched Sam direct the work, Lily at his heels, both of them covered in sawdust and grinning. Her injuries had healed mostly. The burns on her arms left scars she would carry forever. But they were scars she was proud of. Battle wounds from fighting for her family. Hank found her one afternoon sitting on the cottage porch. "Letter for you, ma'am." He handed her an envelope with a Boston postmark. Clara's heart stopped. Ruth. She opened it with shaking fingers. The letter was short, formal. But underneath the stiff words, Clara sensed something breaking. "She heard about the fire," Clara said quietly. "About Victoria. About what I did for Lily." "And," Hank asked, "she wants to come home." "Absolutely not." Sam's face was thunderous. They stood in the half-finished kitchen, Lily asleep in the cottage, the letter crumpled in his fist. "Sam?" "She nearly destroyed us. Her scheming drove Lily into a blizzard. She allied with Victoria. She didn't know Victoria would try to kill us. That doesn't excuse anything." "No, it doesn't." Clara took the letter from his hand, smoothing out the wrinkles. "But she's your mother, and she's asking for a chance to make things right." "She doesn't deserve a chance." "Maybe not." Clara set the letter on the table between them. "But Lily deserves a grandmother who loves her, and you deserve to stop carrying this anger." Sam's jaw worked. "You're actually defending her, after everything she did to you." "I'm not defending her. I'm asking you to consider forgiveness." Clara reached for his hand. "Not for her sake. For yours. For ours. She called you a fraud, a servant, a nobody. And I proved her wrong." Clara squeezed his fingers. "Every day I wake up in this family, I prove her wrong. Letting her come back doesn't change that." Sam was quiet for a long time. His eyes searched her face like he was looking for something. "How do you do it?" he asked finally. "Do what?" "Forgive. After everything you've been through, the orphanage, Thomas Whitmore, Victoria. How do you keep letting people back in?" Clara considered the question carefully. "Because holding on to anger is exhausting," she said finally. And because I've been the person who needed forgiveness. I've been the one who made mistakes, who hurt people who didn't deserve a second chance. She touched his face gently. You gave me that chance. Maybe your mother deserves the same. Sam closed his eyes. When he opened them, some of the fury had faded, replaced by something older and more tired. If she hurts you again, then we deal with it, together. If she says one word against you, then I'll handle it. I'm not the scared woman who walked into your kitchen 4 months ago. Clara smiled. I'm Clara Thornton, and I don't scare easily anymore. Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. Fine, he muttered into her hair. She can come, but I'm not promising to be nice. I wouldn't expect anything else. Ruth arrived on a Tuesday. She looked different, older somehow, smaller. The imperious confidence that had defined her was muted, replaced by something that almost looked like humility. Clara met her on the porch of the new house, nearly finished now, smelling of fresh wood and possibility. Mrs. Thornton. Clara. Ruth's voice was careful. Thank you for allowing me to come. It wasn't entirely my decision. No, but Samuel told me you advocated for it. Ruth's eyes dropped. I don't understand why. Because Lily needs her grandmother. Clara stepped closer. Because Sam needs his mother, even if he won't admit it. And because I know what it's like to have no family at all. Ruth flinched. I said terrible things about you. Yes, you did. I was wrong. The words seemed to cost Ruth something. About you. About what you are to my son and granddaughter. Yes, you were. Ruth finally looked up, her eyes wet with tears she was too proud to shed. Can you forgive me? Clara thought about all the pain this woman had caused. The schemes, the cruelty, the night Lily nearly froze to death because of whispered words. But she also thought about second chances, about the family she'd never had, about the grandmother Lily deserved. I can try, Clara said quietly. But forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a choice you make every day, and you're going to have to earn it. I understand. Good. Clara stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. Lily's been asking for you. She wants to show you her new room. Ruth hesitated on the threshold. Clara, I need to say something else. What? When I heard about the fire, when Samuel wrote to tell me what you did, Ruth's voice cracked. You ran into a burning building for my granddaughter. You nearly died to save her. She's my daughter, Clara said simply. I would do it again. I know. Ruth reached out and took Clara's hand the first time she had ever touched her voluntarily. That's how I know you're exactly what this family needs. What I was too blind and too proud to see. Clara felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but maybe the first step toward it. Welcome home, Ruth, she said, and for the first time she meant it. Summer came to Montana in a blaze of wildflowers. Clara stood on the porch of the finished house, their house rebuilt bigger and better than before, watching Lily chase fireflies in the twilight. The little girl was 7 now. Growing like a weed, Sam complained, eating everything in sight. Her laughter rang across the yard as she cupped glowing insects in her palms. She's getting too fast for me. Sam appeared beside Clara, slipping his arm around her waist. Pretty soon she'll be out running the horses. She's got your stubbornness. And your courage. Sam pressed a kiss to her temple. God help us all. Clara leaned into him, breathing in the scent of summer and sage and home. It had been 6 months since the fire. 6 months of rebuilding, not just the house, but their lives. Ruth had stayed slowly earning back trust through 1,000 small acts of kindness. The ranch was thriving. The bakery Clara had opened in Cedar Hollow was busier than she could have imagined. And in Clara's belly, something new was growing. She hadn't told Sam yet. Hadn't told anyone. She was waiting for the right moment. savoring the secret joy of it. But Sam knew her too well. "You've been smiling at nothing all week," he said quietly. "Want to tell me why?" Clara laughed. "Nothing gets past you, does it? Not when it comes to you." Sam turned her to face him, his amber eyes searching hers. "What is it?" Clara took his hand and placed it on her stomach. For a moment, Sam didn't react. Then his eyes went wide. "Clara, are you—" "About 3 months along. Dr. Patterson confirmed it yesterday." Sam made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He dropped to his knees in front of her, pressing his face against her belly, his shoulders shaking. "Sam?" Clara ran her fingers through his hair. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect." His voice was muffled against her dress. "I'm absolutely perfect." "You're crying." "I'm happy." He looked up at her, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Clara, I'm so happy I don't know what to do with it." "Papa." Lily appeared at the porch steps, fireflies forgotten. "Why are you crying?" Sam reached out and pulled her close so both of them were pressed against Clara. "Because, little bit," he said roughly, "you're going to be a big sister." Lily's eyes went enormous. "Really, really, truly." "Really, truly." Lily let out a shriek that probably woke every animal on the ranch. She threw her arms around Clara's waist, jumping up and down. "I'm going to be the best big sister ever. I'll teach the baby everything. Can we name it Buttercup if it's a girl?" "We are absolutely not naming it Buttercup," Sam said. "What about Thunderclap if it's a boy?" "That's even worse." Clara laughed, pulling her family close, feeling the joy of it spill over until she couldn't contain it. This moment right here. This was everything she had never dared to dream of. The baby came in February, a boy red-faced and squalling with his father's amber eyes and his mother's stubborn chin. They named him James after no one in particular, just a name they both loved. Clara held him in the bed where she'd nearly died of burns a year ago, watching him nurse with fierce concentration. "He's perfect," Sam whispered, perched on the edge of the bed. "Absolutely perfect. He has your frown." "That's a serious expression, not a frown." "It's a frown. Lily had the same one when she was hungry." Speaking of Lily, the little girl appeared in the doorway, Ruth close behind. "Can I hold him?" Lily asked. Clara shifted carefully, making room. "Sit next to me. Support his head." Lily climbed onto the bed with exaggerated care. Clara transferred James into her arms, keeping one hand underneath for support. Lily stared down at her brother with wonder. "He's so small." "You were that small once," Ruth said from the doorway. "Was I—" Lily looked up at her grandmother. "Was I cute like him?" "Cuter." Ruth's voice was soft. "You were the cutest baby I'd ever seen." Lily beamed. Clara met Ruth's eyes over the children's heads. Something passed between them, understanding maybe, or the closest thing to friendship they could manage. "Thank you," Clara mouthed. Ruth nodded once and quietly left them alone. Sam stretched out beside Clara, one arm around her shoulders, watching their children together. "I never thought I'd have this again," he said quietly. "Have what?" "A family. A real family." Sam's voice roughened. "After Margaret left, after everything with my mother, I thought I was done. Thought the best I could do was survive. And now I wake up every morning and can't believe any of this is real." Sam turned to look at her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You did this, Clara. You changed everything. We did it together." "No." Sam shook his head. "You walked into my kitchen when I was at my lowest. You said yes to an insane proposal. You stayed when anyone else would have run." He cupped her face in his hands. "You saved my daughter's life. You saved mine. You taught me that love isn't a trap, it's a choice. The best choice I ever made." Clara's throat tightened. Sam? I love you, Clara Thornton. More than I ever thought I could love anyone. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that. Clara kissed him softly, tasting salt from both their tears. I love you too, she whispered. Thank you for choosing me, for seeing me when nobody else did. Papa, Mama, you're being gross. Lily's voice broke the moment. James is going to think romance is normal. Sam laughed, pulling back from Clara. Romance is normal little bit. It's squishy. You'll understand when you're older. I'm never getting older. I'm staying 7 forever. Clara smiled, pulling her daughter close with one arm while Sam held the baby. All of them together in the house they had built from ashes. 5 years passed. James grew from squalling infant to energetic little boy, chasing his sister around the ranch, getting into everything fearless, in a way that terrified Clara daily. Lily grew too, from little girl to young lady, still wise beyond her years, still the first person Clara turned to when she needed honest advice. The ranch prospered. The bakery expanded. Cedar Hollow grew from frontier town to thriving community. And Clara was at the heart of it, known and loved by everyone. Ruth stayed. She had changed slowly, painfully, but genuinely. She no longer schemed or manipulated. She baked cookies with her grandchildren, told stories about the old days, offered advice only when asked. She and Clara would never be close exactly, but they had found a kind of peace. One autumn afternoon, Clara walked out to the spot where she'd first jumped from the burning house. The grass had grown over the char marks long ago. New flowers bloomed where ashes once lay. Sam found her there, as he always seemed to find her when she needed him. What are you thinking about? He asked, slipping his arm around her waist. The day we met. Clara leaned against him. How scared I was. How sure I was that nothing good could last. And now... Clara looked back at the house. Lily was teaching James to ride in the front paddock, her patient voice carrying across the yard. Ruth sat on the porch shelling peas. Hank whistled somewhere in the barn. Now I know better, Clara said quietly. Know what? That love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. Every day choosing to stay. Choosing to try. Choosing to believe that what you have is real, even when it scares you. Sam turned her to face him. His hair had more gray now, his face more lines, but his eyes were the same amber and warm and full of a love that still took her breath away. I'd choose you again, he said. Every single time, in every life. I'd walk into that kitchen and say those stupid words, and I'd hope you'd say yes. Clara smiled. What stupid words? I need a fake wife. She laughed, the sound carrying across the yard where their children played, and their future stretched endless as the Montana sky. That was pretty stupid, she agreed. Worked, though. It did. Clara rose on her toes and kissed him softly. Best fake marriage ever turned real. Best decision I ever made. Behind them, the sun set over the mountains, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Clara Thornton had spent the first 25 years of her life believing she was meant to be alone, unwanted, forgotten. Now she knew the truth. Some people aren't meant to be found easily. They're meant to be chosen fiercely, deliberately, against all odds. They're meant to fight for love and find it fighting back. She had been the orphan nobody wanted. Now she was the woman everybody loved. And that, Clara thought as she walked back toward her home with her husband's hand in hers, was the only ending that had ever mattered. The contract that started it all, the one that forbade love, the one that promised a clean break and no complications, sat in a locked drawer in Sam's study. They never burned it. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, they would take it out and read the faded words together, laughing at how naive they had been, marveling at how wrong they had gotten it. Neither party shall develop romantic feelings for the other. They had broken that rule within weeks, and breaking it was the best thing either of them had ever done, because sometimes the rules that seem like protection are actually prisons. Sometimes the walls we build to keep out pain also keep out joy. Sometimes the only way to find where you belong is to break every promise you made to yourself about staying safe. Clara had spent her whole life afraid of wanting too much. Now she had everything. A husband who looked at her like she had hung the stars. Children who called her mama, and meant it with their whole hearts. A home that smelled like fresh bread and wood smoke and love. A family not born of blood, but forged in fire and choice and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. Sam had asked her once in those early days why she had said yes to his insane proposal. The answer was simple, really. She had looked into his desperate eyes and seen herself. Someone who needed saving. Someone who had forgotten how to hope. She had said yes because they were the same kind of broken, and together they had made each other whole. That was the truth of it, the heart of it, the ending that wasn't really an ending at all, but the beginning of everything that mattered. Clara Thornton stood in the doorway of her home, watching her children play in the fading light, feeling her husband's arms wrap around her from behind. And she knew with a certainty as solid as the mountains and as endless as the sky that she would never be unwanted again. She had found her place. She had found her people. She had found her forever. And nobody, not scheming mothers-in-law, not vengeful rivals, not ghosts from the past, would ever take that away from her again. This was her story. This was her family. This was home.